Welcome to the Philip Wiley Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Philip Wiley.
Hello and welcome to the episode of the Philip Wiley Show. Today I have Jake from Trimarc joining. Jake and I have been connected on social media and LinkedIn for a while, but we got to speak for the first time on the Trimarc stream last week, which I was had an honor of being on. It was a good time and thought I should have Jake on the show. So thanks for joining, Jake.
Yeah, no problem, Phil. Like, you were one of my first InfoSec follows. I got to say that.
Cool.
When I had a Twitter account for a long time and it was just kind of like weirdo humor. And then I was like, what's this InfoSec thing all about? And who knew I need to follow? And Philip Wiley was one of the first ones. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, why don't you share your background, kind of tell us a little bit about give us your hacker origin story.
Well, that term hacker still, like, I'm so blue now at this point. Like, I still have trouble holding on to that title. And you had Brandon on a little bit ago. Yeah. I'm not sure when his is going to air versus mine, but he's really pushing for, you're a hacker. If no matter what you do, you're a hacker.
Yeah.
But it's still a little hard for me. And even though I know that I do the things that like hackers do, it's like, I don't know why. So I normally introduce myself as a recovering sysadmin. So I was one of those kids, age of 4. I remember playing on my grandparents' Commodore 64 and like typing in BASIC from a magazine, and just not knowing what I'm typing in, but then hitting run at the end, and it makes something happen on the screen, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. What happens if I change this little thing? And so like anytime I was near a computer, grandparents' house, generally like play around with a computer and just kind of seemed cool. And then high school, mid 90s, my uncle got a computer and he lived right across the street from me. So I was like, what's this about? The internet was, available now. I think he got internet access in 95. And so I, found this thing called IRC, and, that introduced me to a whole lot of stuff. Playing around on Undernet, and it was just. So I then went to school for a little while for chemical engineering, and then transferred to computer science. And mostly I was just using a fast internet connection in my dorm. Really, that's all I was doing, was paying, college tuition to have access to a fast internet connection, and just kept playing around on computers. And I would be the guy that, people brought their broken computers to, and here, can you fix this? I was one of the kids that figured out that open SMB shares existed in our dorm. We Windows 95, 98, like, C drive is shared by default. Hey, let's see what we can find on other people's computers. And then around 2000, I started working basically help desk, tier 1 support for a cable modem company. Worked there for about 3 years. Just kind of, getting the basic understanding of how to do troubleshooting, the troubleshooting process. If this, then that, if this, then that, don't skip right to the end of what you think the problem is. Start at the beginning and work your way through the issue. And then I got, we'll just say, released from that job. I was a worthless early 20-something kid, and I got fired for not showing up, basically, is what it boils down to. But luckily, a friend of mine had just opened up a quote unquote security focused consulting company, which basically meant that we sold custom built firewalls built on Red Hat Linux with IP tables, OpenSwan for VPN, which was pretty cool. We had these little, we would configure little WRT54Gs as VPN endpoints that would automatically dial into our, these firewalls that we built. Worked there for a couple of years, and then moved over to, I actually got hired by one of my customers to be just basically a sysadmin at that point. It was a local government. And I started, I had no real idea of what sysadminness was. I mean, I was, coming from consulting where I had to drop in for 4 hours and fix somebody's whatever. And, I had built one Active Directory system, no, two in that consulting job. And I saw that this new place had Active Directory. I was like, oh, I kind of know what that is. I will play around with that. And over my 16 years at that company, I slowly just kind of learned how to do everything there. I mean, I was in contact with the phone system and the billing system and the physical security. And one of your most recent guests, I forget who it was talking about the convergence of, physical and information security and how those are, coming together more and more through identity. So it's like,
yeah,
I just had my hands on all these things. And you did sysadmin stuff for a while. You know what it's like.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's you have to know a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So 2020 rolls around, and then this thing happened. I don't know if you heard about it, but I had to work from home for a little while. And it was about 3 months, and we got called back into into the office in June of 2020, which to me, a little bit early. Just saying. But I really got the taste for the work from home life. Like, I was much more productive just being able to kind of focus in and get in the flow a lot more. And that was something that I was not able to do when I was working in an office with coworkers near me and that sort of thing. So I realized, I need to start thinking about getting a job where I work from home. Okay. A couple months later, the Florida wastewater plant attack or water plant attack happened, where somebody had an open TeamViewer session, I believe it was, and the TeamViewer password was shared out, and it was really simple. And, the guy's watching the attacker add chemicals or whatever to the water system. Well, the city that I work for was also a utility. So we did water. We had electric. And so immediately our utilities director is like, we need to get our security levels up, like immediately, like no question about this. Suddenly there was a lot of money to do stuff, etc. So I kind of got back into the things that I was doing before I started working for the local government, thinking about, how to secure things in preparation for, like, basically we had a security assessment coming. Like, how do I secure all of our stuff before the security assessors come in and laugh at us because I know we are not doing things the right way. And that sort of like lit the fire under me to be like, this is really where you need to be, buddy. You need to be back working in the security side of things. So I tried to push for a new role to be created. We didn't have a security officer. We were a team of 3 people in a local government. Like, I had a couple of people that occasionally helped here and there out of other departments, but it was like 3 people, but none of us were specifically for security. And what happens when nobody is specifically for security? That means no one is for security, right?
Yep.
So tried to push for that to be created and got no real buy-in at all. And then this guy, Sean Metcalf, he posted, I remember it to the day, May 17th, 2021, posted a tweet, said, hey, if anybody's looking to break into security and, has been working in an operations or administration role with Active Directory and Azure AD, please contact me. Let me know, what you want to, or how I can help you. And I DM'd him, said, hey, these are the things I've been working on. And I need to get out. I need to work somewhere that's a little more receptive to my skills. And we had a quick phone call, maybe a week later. And he's like, do you have a resume? I'm like, I'm not really looking for a job, but I can put one together. And then I sent him the resume and we had another talk. And he's like, okay, say Active Directory a lot more in there. I was like, okay, I can do that. And then I sent it back to him again. He's like, okay, I'm going to send this over to our director of services, Scott Blake. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? And so had an interview with Scott, and then had another interview with Sean and Scott, and I was hired. It was like, what just happened? It was really kind of a whirlwind. So started working in at Trimarc in August of 2021. And within about 2 months, they were like, you obviously have a really good grasp on Active Directory security. You're I was hired to do reports, assessments for companies. You understand Active Directory. Your reports are coming through really cleanly. Would you like to be considered a subject matter expert? And I was like, yes, I would. Let's do this. and so we kind of just took it from there. Then about November of last year, I was promoted to the Active Directory Security Assessment Service Lead. So I basically handle QA of every report that comes through. I'm kind of part of the team that does QA. And then I sit on a panel whenever we review reports before delivery. And then I also kind of lead the direction of the service itself. And also now I'm considered the head developer. So kind of do a little bit of everything related to the service. So that's a roundabout way to see. I still don't consider myself a hacker, kind of more of just an overall nerd. Is that a good intro?
I can say for sure you got the hacker mindset, if not anything else, because one of the things when we think about hackers, when you think of the true meaning, the original meaning of hackers, it's people like to tinker with stuff, make things do things that it wasn't intended to do, enhancing capabilities and that sort of thing. So yeah, to me, you're a hacker. You've got the hacker mindset. But
my daughter just a couple months ago was playing on her iPad, and she's like, "Hey, Dad, look at this." And she shows me like something in Netflix that I don't know if it was just a temporary glitch or whatever. She's like, "Look what happens when I tap here." And it like took her to some other section, and everything was all kind of twisted around, and she could get access to stuff that she wasn't, you wouldn't normally see. I was like, "Good job, hacker." She's like, what? I'm not hacking. Like, that kind of is, you're playing around, just kind of touching and feeling and figuring out how stuff works. And yeah, that's what hacking is. So why I can't self-apply that, I don't know. But
so did she write that up for a bug bounty?
Well, the funny thing was, like, we went back and then tried it 2 days later, and they update so often that it was gone, whatever it was. I don't even really remember what it was. I was just kind of happy that she was playing around. So yeah, that's cool that she's curious. That's good to have that analytical, curious mind like that. It's kind of funny finding bugs like that. I've done that a couple times with Apple devices. On an iPhone like several years ago, I was goofing around with my phone, and I was able to bypass, I think actually back when they were using the thumbprint authentication, I did something to bypass that. But then Apple said, yeah, if you could get a camera and record it, so anytime it would happen, I'd be away from home, no access to a video camera. So I was never able to prove it. And then I ran into that a couple times on an Apple Watch, where I typed in the first one or two characters of my passcode and then accidentally touched somewhere else, and I was logged in without putting in the full passcode, but just not able to replicate it. Man, that's always the problem too, isn't it? It's like, I did submit a vulnerability report to one of our vendors at my last job. It was actually like third-party credit card processing company, and one of our I don't remember what billing assistants, she's like, "Hey, I'm trying to get into this customer's account. It's giving me a weird error." And she, not thinking, just sends me the URL of what she's trying to access. I mean, that makes sense, right? I can't get into this. Here's the URL. I click it. No authentication, just drop right into her account and drop, right into this user's just everything. Keys to the kingdom right there. I believe social security numbers of probably shoe size and credit card numbers and, mother's maiden name, all right there. And, so I took the time to, okay, let me walk through this and see if I can verify that I can do this again. And I can do it again and again in a couple days. Sent the email off, screenshots, did the whole, thing that I could do. I'm just, I'm not trying to hack you. This is just, nice guy to nice guy,
Mhm.
And never got a response, and promptly forgot about it because something shiny came by. And finally thought about it again. Excuse me. And went back to check and couldn't drop back in again. And I was like, okay, you didn't need to say thank you, but I'm glad that you fixed the thing. Like, that's really all I care about. So that's why I really like working at Trimarc, is like, we're just trying to fix stuff. Like, we've got some red teamers on our staff that are always like, ooh, how can you get around that? How can you do this? And I'm like, that's just not my mindset anymore. And I think that's the part that makes me not feel hackerish, is like, I'm not trying to get around stuff, but I still like finding interesting paths in stuff, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, pretty cool. Your background starting out with help desk into sysadmin. For anyone trying to get into this industry, I think a lot of times it's undervalued, that sysadmin experience, because, you know, if you are working as a pen tester, you get a shell to a system. If you know the command line, you're going to do a lot better than if you don't. You know, you can, in some cases, if you got right privileges, you can shut down firewalls, shut down services, you know, do certain things. But if you don't know, then you're going to be, and you have that pen testing role, and you're trying to do, you're going to be doing a lot more Googling, and it's going to kind of slow down your efforts. But definitely having that sysadmin background is helpful.
I think the thing that really helped me out the most was, even before the pandemic hit, I really tried to figure out how to do my job with the least amount of repetitive effort. And so, you know, I'm building out, back then, batch files, you know. I skipped right over VBA and went right into PowerShell. And I'm sitting there just, you know, like, how can I automate my job? How can I get my time checking logs and, you know, just checking stuff? How can I cut down on that time? And how can I apply that knowledge then onto my next task? And how can I start at the beginning with automating this task and scripting it? And that to me has helped me in my roles there and now at Trimarc so much, just because in order to really get those things automated, you really have to understand them at a deep level. You know, especially when you're dealing with like, I wrote scripting to, my company would not pay. They wanted signatures in every email, you know, just a consistent signature for every employee, but wouldn't pay for, you know, whatever service would do that. We were still using on-prem Exchange at the time. And so, you know, they wouldn't pay for that. And I was like, well, you know what? This can't be that hard. You take a little HTML file and you replace some text in the various parts, you know, and we have all that information in Active Directory. Let's just pull that all out and put it into these HTML files. And it was like probably a 3-day process of learning PowerShell enough to, you know, just enough to get that done. And then, yeah, so that sort of thing really kind of, I had to touch a lot in Active Directory, way more than I wanted to. Another thing was our Active Directory at that old job was built in the year 2000 and was migrated from an NT4 domain. Like, it was, It's OG. You know what I mean? Like,
yep,
it is old. Yep. And my boss, he built according to the best standards of the time. Well, by the time I took over and started to handle things around probably 2012, 2013, well, the standards are a little different now at this time. Yep. And so having to rebuild everything, you know, and I'm cursing his name the entire time, but that now, thinking of it now, he did the best he could at the time. You know, it was just, it's a different time. But rebuilding an Active Directory to your own standards really gets you deep into it and really gets you hands on. So that is where, I think that's why I can handle it now. So
that's good. That's sometimes those kind of painful moments are pretty helpful. That's kind of like it was like my third sysadmin job. The other jobs I had were installing NetWare servers and Windows 95. So they were like companies doing NetWare and Windows 95 rollouts. And one of the things about it was those were easy. And then I got this job that was actually troubleshooting. So it was support. It wasn't just building servers. And I remember that environment was so unstable to begin with that things were crashing all the time. There were like 3 of us in the group. They had a couple of junior people. So whenever they were on call, basically we're all on call. And, things were constantly breaking, getting called in all hours of the night. And I was close to quitting. And I thought, I need to go somewhere else. This is too much. But then I stopped and thought, I got, over a year's worth of experience doing a lot of installs. I could install in my sleep. I was lacking that troubleshooting piece. So I kind of, stressed, kind of strained through it. And once I got through, I picked up those troubleshooting skills. And I think that's one thing that some people kind of underestimate, because I think when you learn those troubleshooting skills, I think it's something that can be applied to hacking. If things don't always work right the first time. So you have to keep goofing around, tweaking until you finally get it to work. So I think it's something that's underestimated sometimes.
There's a patience that comes from all of that too, is instead of getting flustered, if things are not, you're following a document online and, you get to a part and you're like, you run the command that they give you and, well, that's a weird error. Should I expect that? I don't know. Okay. What happens if I modify it a little bit? Was there a typo in there? And instead of just immediately freaking out and moving on to something else, like just kind of poking and prodding until it works the way you want it to. Yeah. Love that. Love that stuff quite a lot.
So for someone that's wanting to get into a role doing like Active Directory security, what would you recommend?
I mean, work in a small government that can't afford enough people, and you will learn it by default. Honestly, I mean, I can't toot my boss's horn enough. adsecurity.org. I mean, it's really build yourself a lab, stand up to 2 domain controllers and 2 different, create a trust between the 2 of them and just go to town on it. Really, like we are currently actually myself, coworker Dev, and another coworker Daryl, and I think Brandon's helping out a little bit too. We've got some tools on the Trimarc GitHub that help you actually do all that. You have to install the Windows VMs, but then you can just run a couple scripts and it'll create very vulnerable Active Directory setups for you to then just kind of poke around on. Another one that I do not recommend, but I did this, was stand up an Active Directory in your apartment with your 2 roommates and make them join your domain. I did that, and they didn't like that so much. They're like, wait, you control our computers now? I'm like, yeah, kind of, yeah. So, but yeah, that's one way.
That's pretty funny.
I also, honestly, just right now I'm going through, if you want to go through the offensive side of things, I am currently going through the Cyber Mentors PMPT training. Mm-hmm. And the the Windows escalation, privilege escalation course is teaching me things that I was not 100% aware of. Not that I wasn't aware of them, like the misconfigurations, that cause the issues that are able to be exploited. Totally aware of those. That's what I look for every day in my job. But how that actually happens and why the things that we look for are bad, until you actually get hands-on and really break the stuff, that's you don't really know, I guess I would say. Luckily, in my previous job, I had people to just break it for me, and then I would come back and fix it up. And yeah.
So as far as you'd mentioned PowerShell, so how important is PowerShell?
Oh boy, I would not have my job without PowerShell. We do all of our custom tools internally, and our tools for the longest time were just a set of PowerShell scripts that Sean developed. I mean, he stood up Trimarc as a company off of basically one giant script that would collect and process and analyze data, kind of make it easier for then a human to go and read it, because as you're well aware, Active Directory is gigantic, and you don't need to look at every piece of it. But the pieces that you really need to look at sometimes are a little hard to find, and why not pull those out and make it easier for a human to read? So, so all of our tools for the longest time were just PowerShell based, and now we are revamping all of those tools into more modern tool sets. The tool that I use for the ADSA is written primarily in PowerShell, but also we use a SQLite backend now. And so I had approximately none. We could just say it rounded to none experience in SQL. And over the last probably year, really kind of am growing to love it, and I hate that I have said that. But yeah, it's it's that. And then PowerShell then leads itself. It's just scriptable C#, right? So, or scriptable.net, and so that's kind of C# is the next thing down the road. But yeah, like I also maintain a open source tool called Locksmith, which is somewhat popular now at this point, which looks for Active Directory certificate services, misconfigurations, which we got a lot of tools out there that do that, PSPKI audits and certify and certify. And, they've kind of shoehorned it into a lot of other tools now at this point. But we take the approach of not only finding what's wrong, but then also providing customized like snippets for your environment, like taking it specifically and giving you a one-liner that's going to, pull off the access control entries that are the issue, or enable manager approval on a template that needs it. And just I'm creating a tool in PowerShell that I would have loved back when I was sysadmin. I don't want to know what the hell all this stuff means. I don't want, even now, I'm sad that I have so much ADCS knowledge in my head. I don't want to know it, but but if somebody says, hey, if you use this tool, you can run this, and it's going to get you 95% of the way there of getting your ADCS installation secured, that would have been a godsend to me. So I know there are a lot of tool sets out there that do that, and people like CIS provide group policy objects that you can apply to your environment that help you do things, but then you have to sort of if you're doing your due diligence, you need to roll through that all and figure out what all that means. And it always seemed like too big of a lift. And this is literally, you run one command, it spits out a list. Go fix these things. Here you go. Here's how you can fix it. So yeah, PowerShell is, are you familiar with Beto on security?
Yes.
The Twitter account? Okay.
Yeah.
So he and I have become buddies, and he has a PowerShell tattoo. I'm not quite to that level, but yeah, PowerShell and I, we're buddies. And
cool.
I mean, I have a red teamer named Spencer that works with me on Locksmith. He's part of our core team. We got 3 guys, Spencer and Sam. Not Trimarc employees. We just, work on this when we can.
I think I know the Spencer you're talking about too.
Yeah. Tech Spence, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool dude. He's straight up red teamer. He does internal, assume breach assessment or pen tests, and bringing him in and having him work on it, and, having his PowerShell knowledge as a red teamer, I think it's a different skill set. It's a different mindset, but we just all love PowerShell.
That's cool. That's good to hear, because so many times you talk to people, they're talking about learning Python or Golang, which those are good languages, but if you're going to be working in a Windows environment, you might as well use PowerShell.
Well, yeah, especially if you're doing, a lot of, the living off the land stuff that people are doing now. Like, if you're dropped into an environment and you can't get your tools there, pretty good chance that PowerShell is probably still going to be enabled. And most environments, PowerShell 2 is probably allows all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but why not just learn it? That being said, I respect Python. Please don't make me ever work in it. I don't want to. I know that's your language of choice, though, isn't it?
Well, kind of Python or Golang. But the interesting thing is, it's funny how the security world's changed. Now, when you mentioned PowerShell, that's more specifics to window environments. But I remember when I was first getting into security, Perl was the predominant scripting language, and then that quickly Python took over. You don't hear much about Perl anymore, but Perl was popular back then.
I was shocked. I saw Python as an answer on Jeopardy a couple months
really?
back.
It's interesting.
Yeah, they were just like, I don't even remember what it was, but it showed the Python logo. It was like, basically, what is this? And
yeah,
of course, the nerdy girl on stage was like, that's Python.
Just always interesting to see how the technology and security world, when it creeps into mainstream media. Yeah.
It's always funny too when you come across people that, like, you mention a word without thinking about it, or you just say, oh, I work in cybersecurity, and then they're like, ooh, does that mean you're like breaking into banks, or you're working for the government? No, it's mostly Excel. It really is. It's mostly Excel.
Yeah, everyone asks that. And that's the bad thing about the other disciplines in security, is everyone from TV knows about the ethical hacking side, but a lot of people don't really think about the defender side sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's, how do you make checking logs seem sexy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or following up on alerts. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, this one was nothing, and this one was nothing, and this one was nothing for, and then you get that 6 months later. Well, still nothing. Crap.
Well, we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
I do want to talk about how powerlifting actually also kind of taught me how to do research and how to learn.
Okay.
Because, you're a powerlifter.
Yep.
I powerlift. You're stronger than me, but I'm going to get there. When I started lifting, I literally squatting, the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hard.
Yeah.
And I set a goal for myself of, I'm eventually going to squat 315. Bench 225, squat 315, and deadlift 405. Mm-hmm. 2, 3, 4 for, two plates, 3 plates, 4 plates.
Yeah.
When you've got that 45-pound bar on your back, that is eons away. That's how does that happen? How are you going to do that? And it moves quickly. And, in the beginning, you're learning how to move your body, and you're learning how to kind of line everything up. And you make some big jumps really quick. And same thing when I'm learning something new, like big jumps real quick, big jumps. And then you hit that part where you've either hit your initial goal or you just kind of hit a plateau. And this happens to me whenever I'm doing research on something. I hit a point where I'm like, I've got about 80% of the knowledge that I really want to know. And it really gets hard at that point. And it got hard when I was powerlifting. It got hard every time. And then, but what powerlifting taught me was, you get out there and you do the work. You do the work. 80% of the time, it's going to neither be great or bad. It's just going to be work. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it's a small gain. Sometimes it's a slightly smaller gain. But usually, if you're out there working, you're going to progressively, build up over time. And then eventually, you're going to look back and see, holy hell, I just put 425 pounds on my back and went down into a squat and came back up. Like, what just happened? And it's been sort of the same way with the way that I learn things, is like, on weekends, I like to work my brain. I don't lift on weekends. I work my brain. I wake up at the same time, and just like I would go work out, I go and I work out my brain for a little while. And I think that little bit of just like, I'm just going to learn one more tiny little piece of information. Now I look back and I'm like, even my time in Trimarc, looking back to the 2 years ago when I started, I'm a completely different animal as far as what I know about security in general and Active Directory specifically. So, and every time that I get frustrated when I am learning something new, for example, right now, working on, we have a SaaS product coming out beginning of next year called Trimarc Vision, which is going to look at like Active Directory and compare it across forests. And it's kind of like a hygiene plus risk level of all your forests that you have in your environment. And I'm assisting with some of that as well. But like, it's written in a completely different language. It's written in NoSQL. You have to do queries against the Cosmo database. And like, it's not jiving for me. It's not working, but I'm still going in there. And every once in a while, like I'll work for an hour. And then at the end of that hour, I've got a small sliver more of knowledge in my brain. So I guess what I'm really trying to get at is like, do the work, put in a little bit of work every day. And before you know it, you're going to be to your goal or past your goal. And just, it wouldn't have felt like, it doesn't really feel like anything. So that's what I like to say. Yeah.
That's a good analogy and comparison, because one of the things you got to look at too, and you look at compared to lifting, if you think you're going to speed it up by training really super heavy or, at the verge of overtraining, you're going to get injured. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to give up. And same thing like with learning. If you're trying to do that every day, putting in a lot of hours, not to say you can't put in some time every day, but if you try to overdo it, it gets to be a point where you're not focusing, you're not learning, you get burnt out. And so I like the way you're doing that.
Yeah. I'm actually, oh shoot, I probably need to submit that today. Hackers Teaching Hackers, that would submit a lightning talk for them to kind of talk about what lifting weights taught me about learning, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they closed today, so I got to go get that finished.
Thanks for joining. It's been a great conversation. I'm sure that the listeners are going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And if people want to find me, they can on Twitter, .horse. I don't really do the Twitters much except for Trimarc stuff. And then horse on InfoSec Exchange. So that's where I'm there most of the time.
So we'll be sharing your social media with the listeners so they can easily find that and reach out to you.
Sweet. Love to chat. I'm on LinkedIn too, but why? Yeah. No, that's again, I mostly post Locksmith stuff there, and I'm just like, hey, we did another release. So yeah. But yeah, I'd love to chat with anybody. Anybody about generally anything. So yeah.
Very cool. So you're gonna be at DEF CON?
I'm not going to DEF CON. I'm going to both Blue Team Con and speaking at Wild West Hackin' Fest. So I don't like to be away from my family that much. And if I'm not speaking somewhere, like it's really tough for me to get away. Blue Team Con, though, I kind of consider my home con, even though it's about a 4-hour drive away. It's just, I went there before I was actually a Trimarc employee and met Sean for the first time there. I was hired and I was like, I know you're at this conference, and would it be weird for me to come say hi, even though, I haven't started yet? He's like, nah, come on, I got a ticket for you. I'm like, all right, cool. So, but yeah, it's always, have you been to Blue Team Con yet? I don't think you have.
No, I haven't. I'd like to check it out sometime. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, it's very, very low key, like always great speakers, always great speakers. Alyssa and Malware Jake last year did like a back-to-back, how hackers can teach to or talk to the C-suite kind of talks. And that sort of stuff is, I think, where we really need to build out. So I know you've done a couple talks like that too, right? Like transferring hacker speak into business speak a little bit.
No, I haven't really touched on that, but I do see the importance. Some of the things that I'm planning to work on is some talks around to explaining the offensive side to people where either management can understand it better or practitioners that deal with offensive security.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's very important. Very important. So
Yep.
yeah. Those are the cons I'm going to. Probably going to go at Hackers Teaching Hackers if I can get my CFP in quick enough.
Very cool.
And that one's only a couple hour drive for me, so like I can go
nice.
down in the same day. And yeah, I live in rural Ohio, so there's not really a lot around me as far as cons go. But yeah, I'm sure you'll see a lot of the Trimarc staff out there. I know Danny, Sean, I'm sure Daryl and Thomas, and so there will be people.
Yeah, got to meet Daryl in person at WoW was Hacking Fest last year, and then met Sean there for the first time. I was familiar with Sean, just never had met Sean.
Sure. You had Daryl on a show at your the former show that will not be named, right?
yeah. He was on the Hacker Factory before, so yeah.
Yep. Daryl's a good guy.
It was a great episode. Those are always fun when someone just says, "Hey, you need to interview this person." You've never met them before. You're totally not aware, and then you meet them, and they're really awesome people. I mean, those are fun.
Yeah, good dude. I like Daryl. Yeah. I talked him into joining Trimarc. I mean, it took about two months of LinkedIn chat and got him.
Yeah,
you're mine, buddy.
Very cool. So thanks again. Appreciate you joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Phil. It was a great time. And
thank you for listening to the Philip Wiley Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Philip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Philip Wiley. Until next time.